start the night off with this Timu lure. Kind of looks like the bait that I've been seeing. I'm just gonna cast it up and just slowly retrieve it. There's a fish. Let's go. First cast special, baby. I was gonna say, the last 2 times I've been out at night, there's been a lot of bait that looks like silver sides. Little bass. All right. Really can't beat that for a start. Now, I just gotta be super, super careful, man. The only bad thing with these is 3 hooks and a fish that's sprawling out like that. Usually doesn't end well. Usually it's bluefish that I'm afraid of, but stripers have some strength, man. Just trying to do the least amount of damage. Just grab it there. Perfect. All right. You know what that means? The rest of the night's gonna be probably rough, but I'll try and stay optimistic. I'm gonna stay on the outside of that light line right now. Oh, something just picked it up and dropped it. Nice thing with these jerk baits, man, is it really is just a cast and retrieve. They have so much action on them with that lip. I don't know if you could see that, but to be honest with you, I think a lot of striper fishing has to do with the speed at which you retrieve your bait. There's a variety of different hard and soft baits you could use to catch stripers, but finding the rhythm or cadence at which to work the lure, to me, is more important than anything. As you see, the bait looks exactly like this lure, like those little slender silver sides, and I guarantee you. So fishing light lines is nothing new. A ton of people do it. It's a really effective manner of, targeting these fish. But what you'll see is I'm casting past that light line and working the bait through it. Typically, I'm finding that those fish are sitting right on the edge of it and ready to ambush that bait as it gets, past the light. Right on top of a fish. And maybe if they're blitzing, that's the way to go. But you gotta think from a fish's perspective that so the light line that I'm fishing on this night off this dock isn't very big. In fact, I'd have to say it's about maybe 10 yards in length at most. So what you're probably not seeing, because it's really dark, is I'm working the outside of the light line towards the dock, meaning I'm casting to my right as far as I can, and then the next cast I'm moving it, a foot to my left, the next one another foot to my left. That way I'm covering, different grounds. Granted, if you see fish on the surface, that's a different story, but what I'm actually trying to do is cover as much ground effectively. You can have nights where you cast to the same spot over and over and catch fish, but I find that if you work it in increments like fan casting, you'll have way more success. So I crush the barbs on all my treble hooks, especially if I'm not keeping fish. Makes it a little easier for fish to get off, and we're not just, oh man, I mean, there's no shortage of fish tonight. Miss one and then another one's right there to get it. Although we haven't seen anything big yet. A lot of rats, but rats are fun, man. Way more fun, in my opinion, than blindly casting and not catching anything. Now what's interesting is this fish just spit out a silver side. I don't know if you could see it on the screen, it was there briefly, but literally that bait fish looks exactly like the multiple bait fish on this lure. Oh man, I could hear them jumping just ahead of where I casted. Not that they're not where I casted, but they definitely staged themselves right on that edge. Yes. That edge is just like an absolute ambush point. The only way I could describe it, man, it's like walking into a room that's completely pitch dark and someone turns the light on. That's what those light lines really are. It just makes it so much easier for these fish to feed at night. Alright. Let's put this guy down. I think we're gonna take a... So I know the old adage is don't fix something if it's not broken, but in this moment I had about an hour left and I wanted to try a few different profiles that I had packed up. I do think when the fish are this fired up that if your profile resembles what they're feeding on, they're gonna feed on it. Something a little bit. Here we go, Fluke Rig. I got just a jig with a power bait. I'll leave the description in the video down below. I forget the exact name. These still have good action, and they still have kind of a similar build. There we go. Similar build as the lure that we were fishing before. My only fear with the double hook is 2 fish, but to be honest with you, we haven't seen any big stripers tonight, so I'm not too worried about double. If we get double, it might actually feel like a bigger thing. See, that one hit the teaser. That's funny. That one was hooked on the teaser. And one thing, if you're fishing a rig like this with a just straight octopus hook, I just hook it through once like that rather than feeding it through like a jig. But if I keep hearing them hitting bait on the surface, I'm gonna keep trying to keep this up a little higher up in the water column. Yeah, get a better cast here. There it is. Oh, I dropped it. Came back for it though. Little guy. Oh, is that a fluke? Yeah, it's a fluke. All right. I had a feeling there'd be a few of these guys around. Maybe if I bounce the bottom, I'll get these guys, but they are currently out of season, so I don't know how much I really want to waste on them. Do a little convincing. It's hard sometimes to want to convince yourself to come out at night after a long day at work, and knowing that you got to be up super early for the next day. That felt like a better hit. Maybe a little bigger perch. Nah, about the same size. Spunkier one, I guess you'll say. Try a little further in. Yep. That might be a striper. I don't know. Or flounder. A little bit bigger of a fish. Or perch, who knows. Striper, the way it's moving though, tells me. Oh, yep, striper. I was gonna say, it definitely felt like when you get those short strikes from the perch, you kind of know what to expect. But this crappie jig's holding tough. It's another Temu purchase too. I bought like a 5-pack for 89 cents. I figured for 89 cents, even if they suck, it's worth the gamble. And I'll tell you what, I'll probably end up losing this jig now that I said it, but this is the same jig I've used the last 3 trips. And I've probably gotten at least 50 fish on it. So at this point in the trip, I've been flip-flopping between a few different profiles and baits. It is interesting to see, you know, we're on our 3rd lure presentation of the night, and as I switched lures, the species list expanded. You know, the first half of this trip, it was mostly just stripers and some flounder. But as soon as I moved to a 5-gram crappie jig with a 2-inch baby shad, the perch bite picked up. Now, I do think those perch have been sitting here the whole time I've been here. I just think that the 5-inch bait that we were using prior is a little intimidating for them. Not to say you can't catch them on them, but definitely the smaller profile yielded more success as the night went on for perch. Tell you what, man, we've been here for maybe a half hour and everything we've thrown has worked. Now, as an advisory, not every night is like this. I could promise you I've had days where nothing works, so. Probably the biggest perch I've had tonight. Still not what I would consider a jumbo, but the night is still young. That's stripers, I'm pretty sure, right ahead of me. Yes. Yeah, that's a striper. It's funny, man, they're running in cycles. You can tell they're following all this bait around, because earlier when we first showed up, they were just busting all over the place. And then kind of slowed up, and then you hear them busting again. So as the night went on, I tried a variety of methods with this crappie jig. The main one that you're seeing most of the trip was just casting and retrieving at a slower pace. In fact, this one was right when it hit the light line, that fish ambushed it. And that was actually a nicer sized perch compared to what we were seeing earlier. But later in this trip, you're going to see me utilizing a few different cadences. Like I'll probably take about 3 casts in a row where I don't see much on the surface, so I end up casting it as far as I can, letting it sink to the bottom, and then twitching it along. I guess the most common cadence that I was using was like jig, jig, pause, jig, jig, pause, and that seemed to be, stoking the bite off the bottom. So this is one of those nights that I kind of wish I could go back. Initially, I didn't keep anything because, white perch, you need a handful of them to make a good meal. But as this night went on, if I would have realized that I was going to catch the number of perch I was going to have, I probably would have, selectively harvest a few. They are a very good eating fish. And the nice thing in New Jersey is there's no, limits on them. Not that I need to take, a boatload of perch, but it's nice to keep some fish when you're out fishing. Unfortunately, at the time, I didn't realize that I was having audio issues with this GoPro. So if you're wondering why some of the vocal or, audio comes in and out, it's a GoPro issue. Fish. Although the perch have been going in the wrong direction. They've been getting smaller. But you never know, man. These fish move in waves. Yes, are there some that probably dwell around these structures and hang there? Yes, but I think a lot of these fish are kind of on the move. Oh, man. Got him that time. Tell you what, man, that one's got a little bit of sea lice on him. It's interesting. Just holding tough. So you can see the split I'm talking about. But we're going to keep using it until the fish rips it off. These fish don't care. So I'll tell you what, the thing that gets me going on nights like this too is knowing that the winter's coming and that these opportunities are going to slowly fade away. Once, January 1st rolls around, it becomes pretty much just a perch fishery here till March. You know, the back bays kind of become very dormant. You get spiny dogfish and other cold water fish that move in, but you got to be really eager to go fish in the winter for spiny dogfish, man. I don't know about you, but I don't really enjoy the cold enough to want to put that time in. Did it a few winters ago just to pass the time, but you know it's brutally cold out when you're spending, you know, the first 30 minutes in your truck when you get back with your hands on the heater. I have 5 casts in a row of no hits or no fish. That's when it's time to move, because you could fall in love with a spot, man. I'm sure some of you watching this video have done this before, where you catch a bunch of fish on one spot right away and then it dies, and you waste, you know, however many minutes or hours at that same spot hoping to get that same bite that you first encountered. It could be hard, man. I'll be honest with you. It can be very hard to leave a spot that you've had success on. But you got to remember, especially where we are, fishing a tidal area, that, you know, that 30 minutes of just unbelievable nonstop action, you know, could have been just that little feed window that you found. You know, contrary to popular belief, these fish aren't feeding, you know, 24 hours in the day. There's definitely some times that they're feeding like crazy, and then times where they're just kind of just there. There we go. I was about to say that was cast, I think, number 3 since our last fish, so another flounder. I was gonna say that was fighting funny. Oh, that flounder might have did that lower end. Yep, look at that. He clean tear. Let me see if I could hook it through this. But I do think, especially at nighttime, that the motion of the lure is more important than color. Daytime, when you got a lot of light and clear water, I do think that, or even dirty water, color does make a difference. Go a little bit over to our left. We haven't really hit over here, and I keep seeing something flicking in the light. Could be, I mean, it's nervous bait for sure. I think that was perch too. Yeah, I think that's a perch. That's not a bad one. See, if we were keeping fish tonight, we definitely would have had enough for a fish fry. They are a ton of fun though, man, especially on soft plastics. And it's crazy, growing up, most of the white perch guys I knew swore by bloodworms, minnows, and grass shrimp. Oh man, you never really heard many guys fishing plastics for them, but you know, to their credit, if you're fishing really deep areas with a lot of tide or current, this method I'm fishing right now would not be idealistic, I guess you would say, just because you gotta think, a 3-gram jig like this ain't sinking 40 feet in, you know, 2 knot current. I think that's why a lot of those guys have just kind of reverted to the fishing rigs for them, because unless you could find a way to get a jig of this size to sink in that much current that deep, it's kind of a interesting feat. The only, you know, I guess lure you could say that I've ever had great success in deep water for perch is blade baits. Oh man, just missed them. But because of the design of a blade bait, that, you know, thin piece of metal, it cuts through that current pretty well, and if you set up your drift ahead of where you want to go, you can get it down to that strike zone while you're drifting back. You know, on a night like this, if we tied one on, we could probably catch him casting and retrieving a blade bait. But trying to stay away from the treble hooks if I can. That first lure we used was enough treble hooks for me for a night. Ooh. Not sure if that was cast number 4. Oh, as I say that, I had a fish. There's definitely still fish here. I just gotta place the lure a little bit further than what I have been. Yeah, there's definitely still fish here. So we'll give it another cast. There's a, oh, yeah, got him. I think the slow retrieval might be the ticket with these perch too. A lot of times I'm definitely working my lure a little too quick. Like, look at that guy, that's a nice perch. That's a, on the edge of a jumbo. Explore a few more things before I gotta head in tonight. And as much fun as this has been, it's always good to try new things. Yeah, that's probably the smallest perch I had all night, but you know what? We're ending the night on a high note.